It's Messi! It is the cleanest of clean finishes from the best on the planet.
It's time for the biggest sports stories.
Liverpool, the champions of Europe, on top of the world.
The biggest interviews.
That such a great spectacle is ruined by such thuggish behavior.
And all the analysis right here.
He's the one player that has the arrogance to think that he can play in any stadium in the world and any pitch in the world in front of any player in the world and take them on.
Every weekday, it's my sport, it's your sport. It's ZiFM Sport. Let's join the team for the biggest show in the world of sport on ZiFM Stereo. My station, your station.
What a wonderful weekend of sport we've got in the offing. It should be a fantastic weekend in the world of sport, local as well as international. Good evening, Zimbabwe. Welcome to the weekend preview right here on ZiFM Sport on your favorite station, ZiFM Stereo, my station, your station. This evening, you are in the company of Mike Madoda, Barry Manandi, Alois Munjira, Simba Fupajena, and our producer, Sean Tafirinyika. What can you look forward to on the home front? Warriors star Tino Kadewere is expected to make his competitive debut for Olympic Lyon when the club meets PSG in the final of the Coupe de la Ligue at the Stade de France tonight. In our international sports news feature, the NBA season resumed in absorbing fashion as LeBron James, the man they've dubbed the King, followed his own miss and made the winning shot with 12.8 seconds left as the LA Lakers earned a 103-101 victory over their crosstown rivals, the LA Clippers, early this morning.
In around the world in 60, we take off in England, where Racing Point Sergio Perez tested positive for coronavirus and will not take part in this weekend's British Grand Prix at Silverstone. In New Zealand, Canterbury Crusaders stalwart Sam Whitelock is set to become the 7th player to bring up his 150th game for the franchise when he takes to the field against the Waikato Chiefs. In Hamilton tomorrow, and in the United States, Brooks Koepka roared back to form and matched his career best round to open up a 2-shot lead at the WGC FedEx St. Jude Invitational in Memphis.
And then we will light it up with one track to get the party started on Fire Friday. It'll be our play of the day. And then we kick off the beautiful game in London where Arsenal face Chelsea in the 2020 FA Cup final tomorrow night, aiming to get their hands on the last available domestic silverware of the season. Over in Italy, Atalanta and Internazionale will both be looking to secure the runners-up spot in Serie A this season when they lock horns in a mouth-watering contest tomorrow night. In an update from La Liga, Barcelona with 3 names linked with the move to the Camp Nou. And then we'll touch down in Germany. In the Bundesliga, Bild claims Borussia Dortmund are going after Lyon and Netherlands star forward Memphis Depay, with all signs pointing to Jadon Sancho leaving Dortmund in favor of Manchester United.
The Warriors, the Chevrons, the Cheetahs, the Mighty Warriors, and the Sables. From the pool to the track to the field, we are Team Zimbabwe. The Home Front. Local sports news and analysis.
All right, lots of big games to look forward to this weekend, not least of all London, a city divided, blue and red. It's Chelsea taking on Arsenal in the FA Cup final. Why don't you send us through your predictions on Twitter? At ZFM Sport is the handle that you need to follow and interact with. More time at ZFM Sport. Alternatively, you can simply look for Neuta. That's Simba Fupajena. He's on Twitter. So is Barry Manandi, Sean Tafirinyika, Chris Gray, Mark Pozzo, Alois Munjira, and myself, Mike Madoda. We start on the home front with news that Warriors star Tino Kadewere is expected to make his competitive debut for Olympic Lyon when the club meet PSG in the final of the Coupe de la Ligue at the Stade de France tonight. The 24-year-old striker joined the French Ligue 1 side in January on a 4-year contract, but was loaned back to former club Le Havre in the second half of the rest of the 2019-2020 campaign. He was officially unveiled by the French Giants in June and immediately started training with his new teammates in preparation for 2 crucial end-of-campaign matches, which includes the French domestic versus PSG. PSG. Tino Kadewere, 4-year contract, Alois Munjira. Let's start there. The length of the contract really showing that Olympic Lyon are hoping big and hoping that Tino Kadewere can make the grade at their club.
Yeah, Mike, you see, when giants of European football go for a youngster and give them that kind of long-term contract, you are rest assured that they have seen something and they are looking at development, and most importantly, they might just looking at shipping him away, shipping him off. They want to recoup. They might just thinking, you know what, he's going to play here for 1 or 2 seasons, then we are going to sell big. They have seen the potential. He has got the potential. You know, if you can score goals in League 2, you can still score goals in League 1. It depends on the amount of chances that gets created, because the technique is always going to be the same. They have seen that. He is a top striker. He can score goals. He is very skillful. You know, the thing about Tino is that he is unlike you see those kind of old-fashioned strikers that just stay in the box to score goals. Tino has got the skill. He can actually manufacture his own chances because he is very skillful. He can dribble. He is one boy that I've seen that is one of the most skillful players. A lot of Zimbabweans don't know that, but we saw him growing. He has got so much skill that he can actually dribble everybody else and score goals. So they have seen that. So they have got confidence in him. 4-year contract is not a joke. It's a big, especially when you're talking about the biggest team in France at the moment. You know, Lyon has been on top of the game. They've been in the Champions League and all. So for us, we're also happy here in Zimbabwe that, you know what, our boy has been given that. We have always known that he has got so much potential, and it has been recognized in France. And we hope for him to do great things for Lyon, and we hope he gets goals because he scores goals. He has been doing that, and we hope to see him scoring goals for Lyon.
Now, Tino Kadewere has featured for Olympic Lyon in friendly matches as they built up to the blockbuster clash versus PSG, and he's expected to make his official bow for the club tomorrow. He's taken part, Barry, in 3 of the 5 preparatory matches that Lyon has played, scoring 4 goals as they beat Swiss lower-tier club Port Valais 12-0 in the first home game. Do you think he starts, or do you think he's going to get any action at some point in this game?
I think he might get some action, but certainly not to start, because you look at the formation that Rudy Garcia, the coach out in Lyon, likes to play. He likes to play the 3-5-2. His 2 lead strikers are obviously the leader of the pack, Muridzwe and Memphis Depay, and then he's usually partnered by Moussa Dembele. So you got to think to yourself, but those 2 are likely to start up front, especially given the team that they're playing in the French Cup. So for a start, no, definitely not. Possibly as an impact player. Also, given that the French League has just been playing these preparatory matches, have been they haven't played high intensity games, so many of the players may not be at the level to play the full 90. And in that case and scenario, Tino Kadewere certainly becomes an option. I'll be happy to see him come off the bench, and hopefully he has an impact on the game.
So it looks like, according to Baz, Tino Kadewere may well have to be content with making an impact off the bench, as he's up against some very stern performers for Olympic Lyon, not least of all the names that he rattled off there: Memphis Depay, the likes of Moussa Dembele. But Simba, he also has to contend with Bertrand Traore in the competition at Olympic Lyon in terms of starting places or even a place on the bench. Very stiff, and Kadewere might have to be content with being a bit part player.
Yeah, a bit part player, but I think what holds him in good stead is the fact that when he started off with those 4 goals against the Swiss lower tier team. People would have sniffed at that and said it's just a lower tier team, but the fact that you're scoring goals will always give you a chance, just like Alois has mentioned. So I think that will always be in the back of Mr. Garcia as he's prepping it. And then, like everybody's pretty much alluding to, he's going to have to get used to coming off the bench. It's what he then does when those few minutes are availed to him. Will he continue to actually help the team going forward? Is he going to come in to possibly nick a goal to level it, or just nick a goal to win it? Whatever it is, he needs to have an impact. I think of people like Divock Origi at the Liverpool sort of lineup. Never guaranteed a starting place, but most of the times people will always remember him because in the big encounters, and this one against PSG is going to be a big encounter, he's always kind of put his hand up. So the same is being hoped for Tino going into this one.
Absolutely. Just a nice little stat or a bit of trivia for Zimbabwe football fans. Tino Kadewere, the former Prince Edward boy, becomes the first Zimbabwean to play in the Coupe de la Ligue final, the French FA Cup final. Tino Kadewere, the first Zimbabwean to feature in that match. And don't forget that Lyon are in the Champions League still. They beat Juventus in France, but they have to travel to Turin looking to get one over the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo. They do have a first leg advantage, but unfortunately Tino Kadewere, of course, is not a member of that squad, but he'll be taking a look at the progress of his teammates with a lot of interest. Well, the show must go on. This is ZiFM Sport on a Friday, previewing the weekend for you in the company of Barry Manang, Alois Munjira and Simba Fupa Jena. Coming up, we've got a local sports news roundup featuring tennis, golf and news out of the Council Lager Premier Soccer League. And then we go international with our sports news, where we take a look at the opening night of action in the NBA.
Hi, this is Benjamin Locke. I'm on the Zimbabwe Davis Cup team, and you're listening to ZiFM Sport.
Let's take our local sports news roundup, starting with tennis, where Emma Kandeni Tennis Club coach Kumbulani Tembo says they are confident of ensuring a safe return of players to the court, adhering to strict COVID-19 safety regulations. Despite a surge in the number of COVID-19 cases, Tembo remains confident that they can guarantee the players' safety. According to conditions set by the Sport and Recreation Commission, all tennis facilities are expected to appoint an enforcement officer that will ensure adherence to the guidelines. On to golf news of a philanthropic nature, where a group of United Kingdom-based golfers have joined other well-wishers in donating to Kuchengetana Relief Kitchen in Chuchungwiza, owned by lawyer and philanthropist Samantha Morozoki. The kitchen feeds thousands of food-insecure residents every day, currently under the COVID-19 lockdown. The group, which consists of people with different nationalities, donated cash amounting to 1,160 United States dollars. This is the second time that they have been donating, after handing out $1,153 last month. Let's wrap it up with news from the top tier of domestic football. Slightly sad nature, where the Premier Soccer League, in their condolence message, described former PSL chief executive Chris Sambo as a dedicated football servant. The local football fraternity has been plunged into mourning following the death of Sambo on Wednesday night. The former Blackpool Secretary General was buried at Greendale Cemetery this afternoon.
Hi, this is Mike Madura, and you can catch me and the team for all the latest breaking news out of the world of sport, local as well as international, on your favorite station, my station, your station, ZiFM. We are Z-Team on ZiFM Sport.
Z International Sports News Roundup, where the world comes out to play.
All right, now international sports news. The NBA resumed in absorbing fashion as LeBron James followed his own miss and made the winning shot with 12.8 seconds left, as the LA Lakers earned a 103-101 victory over the LA Clippers early this morning. Anthony Davis scored 34 points and grabbed 8 rebounds for the Lakers, while James, who struggled on 6 of 19 shooting, finished with 16 points, 11 rebounds, 7 assists. Despite the fact that the Lakers and Clippers were playing in the NBA's bubble at the ESPN Wide World of Sports complex in Lake Buena Vista, Florida, they produced some entertaining high-level games they had played the 3 times they met earlier this season. Let's hear what LeBron James had to say after the game.
To get, back to your rhythm and your flow and how you shoot the ball and things of that nature. But the one thing you can do is defend, because you can always communicate. You can communicate through mistakes that you may happen. You can, you have teammates that, back you up when you do make a mistake or whatever the case may be. So the communication and defensive side is something that should always be on point.
Z.
Mike, basketball is back, and early this morning, the LA teams served up a decent show, but it wasn't without the usual errors that you will see when players are coming off a long layoff as they are coming off?
Yeah, absolutely, Barry. 4 matches on the big clash that a lot of people want to see. I think this is the modern rivalry in NBA, which is at its very formative stage. We're hoping, of course, that over the years, this will become an epic rivalry with 2 teams going for it, all based in one arena and in one city. I loved LeBron James in this game, Barry, because I know he had a terrible time of it in terms of his shooting. You mentioned there's 6 for 19, but the man was a facilitator. And in the clutch moments at the end of the game, he came through. He's been accused so many times over the course of his career, especially when he was in Miami, that he wasn't a clutch player, that he didn't want the ball in the moments that mattered. But in this instance, Barry, there were shades of Michael Jordan, shades of Kobe Bryant, 2 players that come very quickly to mind, who always wanted the ball, who always wanted the nut in the closing seconds of the game. And that's exactly the responsibility that LeBron James took in this game. And this is a very important psychological blow by the Lakers, Barry, at the very start of the restart to get one over a Clippers side that they struggled against during the regular season.
Absolutely. And indeed, and the Lakers just seem to know how. Sims, you look at it, the Lakers having the lead for large portions of the game, but the Clippers clawing their way back into the game at various portions. But in the clutch, when you've got LeBron, you've got AD on your side, you generally know how to deliver a result. And that might be just a touch ominous for the rest of the league.
Definite ominous signs coming through, Baz, because when this partnership was announced back then, a lot of people would have hoped that it was not going to kick off. And it seems like it's kicking off now at possibly the worst time for most of these other teams. When LeBron has been aging over the years, one of the good things that he's managed to do, which people slate him for, is his load management. He seems to have another gear as he approaches the playoffs. And right now, with what he did as a facilitator, it's going to be really ominous because on the boards, AD was dominating. They did lose a bit of steam going towards the halfway mark of the match, but the fact that they managed to have the mental fortitude to kick back in, hold a slender lead, and then close it off, I think that is what will start to bother a lot of other teams in the NBA.
All right, as Mike said, there were other games this morning, and in other results, Rudy Gobert broke a tie by making 2 free throws with 6.9 seconds left as the Utah Jazz defeated the New Orleans Pelicans 106-104 in the first game of the restart to the NBA season. Now, what does this all mean? The resumption of play in the NBA means that there are 22 teams out of the NBA 30 franchises. That means 9 from the Eastern Conference and 13 from the West, which are in the bubble in Orlando. Essentially, just the teams that were still in the hunt for the playoffs before the season suspension. And this sort of format, Mikey, in the bubble makes it so that every game is absolutely key if you want to get into the postseason, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, Barry. Right now, I think they're sort of like playing to determine the final standings and the playoff seeds. So they just brought in the teams that were literally in the hunt. That's why we're not seeing the likes of Golden State Warriors because they were sort of like bringing up the rear in the Western Conference. So we won't be seeing the likes of Steph Curry in this particular edition. What we've got are the teams that are a realistic prospect of going for honors. So for me, it's very exciting, Barry. The games that are being played between now and the start of the playoffs, they matter because ultimately they influence your seeding, where you're going to end up on the rankings and who ultimately you're going to face on the possible route to glory.
And you can see it, and you see that in the intensity that we've seen in the games that we've seen so far, isn't it, Sims? A 106-104 victory in that game between the Jazz and the Pelicans. And then, of course, we spoke about the LA teams and their results just a couple of points in it. So that intensity of this is showing just how much it matters.
Definitely how much it matters. And I think it's been a welcome resumption. A lot of people would have wondered whether the intensity, like you've alluded to, would have been up there. The defense, perhaps in bits and pieces, dribs and drabs, not as intense as possible. But I think as they come into their own and as people actually start to see the sense of where they are likely to end up, and some teams start getting knocked off and getting closer to the playoffs, I think that intensity will only get better and better.
Well, certainly. Now, those 22 teams, they retain the wins that they already had in the 2019-2020 season and will play 8 seeding games each to determine the final standings and playoff seeds. The top 7 teams from each of the Eastern and Western conferences automatically progress to the playoffs. Now, some key dates for you to take note of. The seeding games begin obviously yesterday and will carry on up until the 15th and 16th of August, where the play-in tournament will commence. And then from August the 17th, we will have the playoffs. So we'll have the conference finals. The Western and Eastern Conference finals will begin on September the 15th, with the NBA finals proper starting on September the 30th. And October 13th has been given as the last possible date for the NBA finals game 7. So it should all be done by the 13th of October. Your weekend games, what you can look forward to: Sacramento Kings are taking on the San Antonio Spurs. Of course, it's the bubble, so yes, you have home teams. The Dallas Mavericks will be at home to Houston Rockets, but it's all in one location. Miami Heat will take on Denver Nuggets. Utah Jazz will take on Oklahoma City Thunder. New Orleans Pelicans will take on the LA Clippers. The 76ers of Philadelphia take on the Indiana Pacers, while the LA Lakers will take on the Toronto Raptors. The Washington Wizards will take on the Brooklyn Nets, while the Portland Trailblazers take on the Boston Celtics. The San Antonio Spurs are at the Memphis Grizzlies, albeit in Orlando, and then Sacramento Kings will take on the Orlando Magic.
Hi, my name is Luke Bahamute, Los Angeles Clippers small forward, and you're listening to ZiFM Sport.
Around the world in 60 seconds. International sports news.
Around the world in 60, proudly brought to you by DSTV, who've added 2 fantastic sports channels to their offering. The NBA, as Barry was reeling off those fixtures, available on ESPN this weekend. So you can catch the Lakers, you can catch the Toronto Raptors, who are the defending champions, or even the Boston Celtics in action. Let's give you some sports news as we take you around the world, starting in England. Racing Point Sergio Perez tested positive for coronavirus and will not take part in this weekend's British Grand Prix. The Mexican was self-isolating and absent from the Silverstone paddock yesterday after an inconclusive result led to a retest. That test returned a positive result. Perez is the first driver and frontline member of a Formula One team to test positive for COVID-19 since the delayed season began earlier this month. Let's go to New Zealand, where the Canterbury Crusaders stalwart Sam Whitelock is set to become the 7th player to bring up his 150th game for the franchise when he takes the field against the Waikato Chiefs in Hamilton tomorrow. Whitelock, now in his 11th Super Rugby season, has been named vice-captain for his milestone match. On Sunday, Bolden Barrett will stay at fly half for the Auckland Blues when they tackle the Otago Highlanders in Dunedin. The All Black playmaker has been retained in his preferred position by head coach Lyon McDonald after playing fullback earlier in the competition. Let's touch down in the US, where Brooks Koepka roared back to form and matched his career-best round to open up a 2-shot lead at the WGC FedEx St. Jude Invitational in Memphis. Koepka has only had one top 10 finish in 10 starts either side of the coronavirus shutdown this year and has missed the cut in 2 of his last 3 appearances, but some hard graft with his coaching team a few days ago reaped rewards as he fired a 9-birdie 62. Ricky Fowler, who has also struggled for form in recent weeks, was another to shine on day 1 at TPC Southwind, opening with a 64 that was matched by Brendan Todd.
Hi, I'm Warriors coach Zdravko Logarušić, and you are listening to ZiFM Sport.
Sports with a difference. Z. The big leagues, the big teams, the big players. The beautiful game on ZiFM Sport. All the rivalry.
Here is Harry Kane for Tottenham. Oh, what a goal! A classic derby goal from Harry Kane. Catch him if you can.
All the stars.
Oh, back here's Liverpool 2 in front. Talk about impudent. Talk about improvisation. Talk about Sadio Mane.
And all the game-changing moments.
And Raheem Sterling rattles it home. And once more, City are in front in a trice.
All the updates from the Premier League on ZiFM Sport.
There's no better place to kick off the beautiful game than in England, where it's cup final time. Arsenal face Chelsea in the 2020 FA Cup final tomorrow night, aiming to get their hands on the last available domestic silverware of the season. Now, Manchester United aside, these are two of the most successful clubs in the competition's history, and they face off at Wembley, each with a remarkable 6 FA Cup wins this century. Mikel Arteta's Arsenal are chasing a record 14th title in what has been an underwhelming season, with an 8th placed finish, their lowest in 25 years in the Premier League. Let's get the pre-match thoughts of Arsenal coach Mikel Arteta.
Yeah, we are very excited. It's such a special day in this country, in this competition. We are a club that is very much linked as well with the amount of time that we've won it. So we want to do it again. For me, obviously, it's so special to be in my first season in charge in a final with the team. And the boys are, again, really excited and looking forward for the game tomorrow.
Let me start with you, Alois, on this one. It's an interesting cup competition, or should I say cup final, this one featuring Chelsea and Arsenal. When we did the preview for the semi-finals, we all predicted that we were likely to see a Manchester derby in the final, because we all thought Manchester City would get the better of Arsenal, certainly, and we all thought that United would edge Chelsea in the other semi-finals. But we got the cup final that we didn't predict, the cup final that we weren't expecting. It's a London derby, and these two teams, I think, will both feel they have a chance of winning it.
Yes, Mike. I think the lucky thing that we had in these semi-finals are that we had 4 big teams, 4 good teams that either way we were going to have a good final. You know, like we're having now. Although we predicted that we're gonna have a Manchester derby, we have now gotten a London derby, which is actually still mouth-watering for football fans, and it's going to be a very good final as well. When we look at the form book, league-wise, Arsenal haven't been great. You know, like you have said that this has been their lowest position in a very, very long time. At the same time, Chelsea, although they didn't get as much points as they did last season, they are finishing in the Champions League spot as well. So winning the FA Cup is going to be a boost for them. You know, when you look at it, they qualify for the Champions League and they win the FA Cup. I think it can actually be written down as a successful season for Frank Lampard. So they will be gunning for it. At the same time, Arsenal are looking to redeem their season. You know, winning the FA Cup, I think it can appease some fans. You know, Sean included, our producer. You know, I'm sure that they can smile a little bit by winning the FA Cup. So I think this is going to be a very interesting final. Dinga for me, because these teams, they play good football, and especially Chelsea, for me, I think they finished the season on a high. They were playing good football, and I actually was enjoying. And at the same time, Arsenal, they're trying to we can actually see where they're going. So for me, I think, like I said, we are having a final that we didn't predict, but still a good final all the same. So we are looking forward to it, and it's going to be, for me, it's unpredictable. I can't put my hand on it. Even if you say predict the score, I'll just do it from the top of my head, but not from the phone book. These teams look evenly balanced, playing good football, and I don't really know who is going to walk away with it.
Now, Barry, normally we would say that, you know what, the team that scores the goals or the team that gets the first goal is likely to win. But the one thing that's characterized Arsenal and Chelsea over the past season is that they have been very poor defensively, that they give the opposition a look in. Teams score versus Chelsea, teams score versus Arsenal. Both defenses make mistakes. Do you get the feeling that the team that defends better, that defends the best in this cup final, will probably give themselves the best chance of victory?
No doubt. I think that's the one that, and I'm glad you chose those words, in the sense that it's going to be better, because I don't see this game stretching for long periods, going to the 70th minute at 0-0 and then a very tight, tense affair and ending 1-0. No, we're going to see goals. And I think that, in fact, it works as a benefit to all of us, because this saves the FA Cup. We're tired of those FA Cups where you have Wigan versus a team that, Wigan then went on and won it, but then that's a bad example. But
we had Watford versus Man City, I think, a couple of years ago, and Man City banged 6 past them.
And it's a damn squib. So what you want is a final where it matters. You look at all of the elements to do with this cup final. It matters. This is Arsenal's last chance at European glory to get into Europe. This is their only route. So they've got to win this cup. Frank Lampard is looking to save his season, save the fact that the team is headed in the right direction. So he'll want to achieve as well. So attacking sides, goals are going to be aplenty. But the one that wins it is the one that's going to defend the best of the two.
And now we're going to talk about Chelsea in a minute, and in so doing, we're also going to get to hear the thoughts of former Chelsea defender Frank Sinclair giving his thoughts on Chelsea. But before we get there, Simba, I need to ask you this. There's been a lot of talk around Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. He missed out on the Golden Boot by one goal to Vardy of Leicester City. Do you also get the sense that this game, more than it being important for Arsenal to get into Europe, for Arsenal to get some silverware, that this game is important for the psyche of Aubameyang in him deciding whether he stays with Arsenal or not?
Absolutely, because I think what has come out from his camp has been Arsenal need to prove to Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang that they've got a project that is worth him bothering to stick around. And the fact that they failed to manage to secure Europe in terms of giving him any sort of indication. And what it will also do is, even if they win it, he's still got a bit of time to then see whether, if they've secured Europe, are they now going to start to kick in also in terms of the signings that need to come through so that next season looks a bit more attractive. If they don't get Europe, I don't see why he'll be sticking around, because essentially he'll be their marquee player trying yet again to be at the spearhead of another rebuild. And I don't think he's got enough years left in him. He's got one more probably big contract that might be dangled in front of him that he's likely to take as soon as it comes. He seems to have missed out on a Real Madrid one, if reports are to be believed, when he was moving from Dortmund. So even landing at the Arsenal was a coup for them. He's done well as an individual, but in terms of team performances, it's been quite underwhelming. So they definitely need this one to go for him.
Yes, the FA Cup final tomorrow. It's a city divided, London split between the red half and the blue half. We've just given you a rundown of the red half. Time to go blue. Now, 50 years on from their historic first, Chelsea will be going for their 9th FA Cup and a first over Arsenal in 3 attempts. Frank Lampard could become the 3rd Blues man to win the cup as a player and a manager, following on from an impressive top 4 finish in the league. Former Chelsea defender Frank Sinclair says that Lampard deserves huge credit for leading the team to a top 4 finish, and an FA Cup victory would be an added bonus.
I think the remit for Frank would have been, when he came in this season, would have been to try and finish in the top 4. And when you have to take into the situation that obviously there was a transfer embargo when Frank took over, he's just lost, for me, probably the best player in the Premier League in Eden Hazard leaving the football club. And then on top of that, he's actually, breaded some younger players and academy players. I think he's had 9 players have starts this season for Chelsea that's come through the academy, which is incredible and unheard of. So full credit to Frank. And obviously if we can lift the FA Cup on top of that, then it really is the icing on the cake.
Alois, you already touched on the fact that Frank Lampard has made significant strides with this Chelsea side. May not have scored as many points as they did last season, may have shipped in a lot more goals than they did last season, but the signs of progress are there. He's qualified his team for the Champions League. He's signed some very exciting players that will be at his disposal next season. And you get the feeling that, just to give his team that taste of silverware will be important for their confidence heading into next season.
Of course, Mike, he has got a young side. Of course, he has mixed a very good combination of experience and youngsters as well. And winning the FA Cup, I think, is actually an icing on the cake, and that can actually boost their spirits when going into the next season as well. And I see the Chelsea family happy with what has been done by Frank Lampard at the moment, because like he said as well as a coach, he said that a lot of people didn't expect them to be where they are right now, like especially in the top 4. I'm one of them. When they started, I actually gave them like, okay, let them get into Europe, because he is doing a rebuilding exercise, which I actually appreciated, because he brought in a lot of these youngsters, and I believe in that. But when you look at it, at the end of the day, that's top 4. This is like FA Cup final. Even if they lose, I still think that they will go away and say, probably we did well. But if they win it, I think it's a very, very big boost. And we have already talked about the signings that are coming in. He has said it himself, Frank Lampard, that expect a lot of big signings next season. We have seen him, they've already signed Werner, and they are almost signing Havertz. And for me, they've done well so far in the transfer market with the attacking players, but they still need to do a lot more defensively. You talked about it. They have shipped in a lot of goals this season. For a top 4 side, it's actually kind of like disgraceful, if you ask me, because you can't concede so many goals and still be in the top 4. So hats off to the attacking team, because they did well to actually counter that. But they need to do a lot of work in their defense. He needs to sign a lot of good players in their defense, and probably change his formation to actually be a little bit more defensive. He can actually borrow notes from what do you call him? The defensive man.
Mourinho.
Jose Mourinho. You can actually go and get some notes from Jose Mourinho on how to defend, but I think they've done well. Honestly speaking, I think top 4 in the FA Cup final is actually quite good for Frank Lampard in his first season as Chelsea manager. But if they win it, I think it's actually an icing on the cake, and it's good for Chelsea fans.
Yeah, and just taking a look at some of the players, Barry, that Chelsea have at their disposal. Christian Pulisic has come on in leaps and bounds, especially after the restart. He looks like he's got a goal in him, he's got an assist in him. A very dynamic player, very creative player. And then you also take a look at Mason Mount. He scored a wonderful free kick versus Wolves. Do you pick both in your starting lineup in this game versus Arsenal? Is this a game that Frank Lampard sets up his team for goals, or does he sort of like maintain the cautious approach that we saw versus Liverpool in that league game?
I think it's you've got to be honest with yourself and with the game. The one that scores the most goals is going to win this cup final. So I think if Frank Lampard is to be totally honest with himself, he doesn't have N'Golo Kante, so that screen in front of his back 4 is not there, meaning that there are going to be goals scored. You're going to ship goals. What you've got to do is focus on what you are doing going forward and score more goals in your opposition. So for me, you start your most attacking lineup, and Pulisic right now is on fire, so he's a shoo-in. If Mason Mount is ready, you put him on. I say go for it. Get as many goals as you can, and then get over the line in this final. That's how I would approach it. But I'm telling you, Frank Lampard, this is now my answer to your question, he's going to go cautious.
All right, now Simba, if you were Frank Lampard for this game, there's been a lot of talk, especially in the English media, around the selection of the goalkeeper. Who is the man who's going to be between the posts? Does he stick with Will Caballero, who has played in the cup matches, or is he going to go with Aritha Balaga, his keeper, who he seems to have lost confidence in? And is this the death knell for Aritha Balaga if he's not selected in this game? Because it looks like Frank Lampard doesn't trust him.
Doesn't trust him at all, and I think where there's a Willie, there's a way to probably win Frankie's very first trophy. So I think that's the way he's likely to go, because I think when you look at it, it's about, if it ain't broken, don't try and fix it. And you look at the pressure of a cup final, and we're thinking that might be what might sway him to play his best team. But if you dial back to the last match of the season, when Champions League wasn't guaranteed and people surely he's not going to tamper too much, that's when he actually dropped Kepa. So I think that's kind of the death knell has already been put in, the final nail in the coffin. It would send out a lot of maven to the board to say, is he wanting him to stay on or not? So I think already Kepa should start packing and actually looking for another team, because the moans and groans that have been coming from Frank over the course of the season have not necessarily been helped by any sort of extended good form by Kepa. So to bring him in for the final, if he does well, confuses the process again, I don't see Kepa actually starting this particular match.
All right, before we get of the team, let me just give you some stats here. Arsenal have won on 76 occasions versus Chelsea, who have won 65 in matches that these two teams have played in. There have been 59 draws. Of their FA Cup clashes, Arsenal have won 9 to Chelsea's 5, with 6 matches drawn. Now, the last time these two teams have faced off or squared up in the FA Cup, it was in the 2017 FA Cup final, with Arsenal winning 2-1 thanks to goals from Alexis Sanchez, now with Inter Milan, and of course a player that belongs to Manchester United, and Aaron Ramsey, now with Juventus. And of course, this was either side of a Diego Costa strike for Chelsea. I'll start with you, Barry Menandi. Your prediction for this game?
Oh, shucks. It could go either way. So, look, let me just use my heart. I'm hoping that Arteta, good things happen for him, so I want him to be in Europe. So I'm going to say that it's going to be a 3-2 win, possibly even after extra time for Arsenal. I think where Arsenal is strong, Chelsea is weak, and that's on the flanks. So I think they'll take advantage of that.
Alois, your prediction for this one? You say that you couldn't call it. It was going to be very difficult for you, but I'll demand that you do. At least give me one scorer.
I think it's going to be a high-scoring final, like Perry and you might have already alluded to, because the defenses are very porous. I like Arteta, but I've got a feeling that I think Frank Lampard will get this one. And 3-3 in the no more 90 minutes. And, and Chelsea will win it 4-3.
4-3 for Chelsea in extra time. Simba, we've already, Barry is saying 5 goals, Alois is saying 7 goals.
I'm pretty much just going to go the way Barry has gone with the 3-2-1. I know Barry's one is probably hyped by some sort of family allegiances, so we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, exactly. Nesto is a big Arsenal fan, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a massive Arsenal fan.
So for me, the only reason is I just want as many English teams to take advantage of being in Europe as possible, and the add to that. So 3-2 to the Arsenal.
Right there, your predictions coming in from the team for the FA Cup final. It's a big one. It's Arsenal taking on Chelsea in the 2020 edition of the FA Cup final. And on Monday, we'll see who nailed it on the head and which team lifted the trophy.
All right, out of Italy, your Serie A fixtures for this weekend. It is the last weekend of Serie A fixtures, and they look like this. Brescia entertain Sampdoria. Juventus take on Roma. AC Milan will entertain Cagliari, while Napoli take on Lazio. Lazio will have their eye on that second position, depending on what happens in the other game of the two other protagonists. Spal will take on Fiorentina. Bologna versus Torino. It's Genoa versus Hellas Verona. Lecce host Parma. Sassuolo entertain Udinese. But the two protagonists I spoke about are Inter and Atalanta, and they'll both be looking to secure the runners-up spot in Serie A this season when they lock horns in a mouth-watering contest tomorrow night. Inter are currently second in the table, 1 point clear of third-placed Atalanta, while fourth-placed Lazio are also in the race for second, entering the final weekend of action in Italy's top flight. Now, Mike, when you look at Atalanta, they have made incredible strides in Italy. They certainly have been disruptive to the establishment in Italy, and you might as well call them the Italian Atletico Madrid in inverted commas.
Well, Barry, I'm not too sure that Atalanta are like Atletico Madrid. They do score a lot more goals than Atletico Madrid do score in La Liga. But I understand where you're coming from in terms of Atalanta emerging as a third force to disrupt the normal order of things in Serie A. Fantastic side, coached by Gianpiero Gasperini, a man who certainly believes in finding his way to the back of the net. They've scored over 100 goals in all competitions. I think they are one of the top 3 scoring sides in Europe with Bayern Munich and Manchester City. So they're full of goals. The question is, can they defend? Can they keep Inter out? And that's where I have my questions, because Inter themselves are also full of goals. On their day, they can put many past you. You know, Romelu Lukaku, Alexis Sanchez has found a new lease of life at Inter, especially after the restart. Lautaro Martinez, he started the season like a house on fire, has been relegated to the bench of late, but he came off the bench in midweek to score Inter's second in their game there.
Brilliant goal.
They do have goals. Yeah, brilliant goal. So I think Atalanta may well afford Inter Milan more opportunities to score than the Inter Milan defense is going to afford Atalanta. So I think Inter might edge this one 2-1. So I'll go with Inter for this game.
Well, it's all on the line in that game, and Lazio with themselves, who will be away at Napoli, will be hoping they can deliver the result that they need and possibly secure that second spot. It all comes to a head in Italy's Serie A this weekend. The European leagues coming to a conclusion and making way for the Champions League that starts next week.
All right, let's wrap the show up in Spain, where Barcelona reportedly lining up transfer targets to help shore up their backline, with 3 names linked to the move to the Camp Nou. According to Mundo Deportivo, 3 defenders are of interest to Barcelona, with Eric Garcia, Juan Bernat and David Alaba being linked with a potential move to the La Liga side. It's noted that all 3 will see their respective contracts expire next year, and so this is another factor behind Barcelona's interest, as they could be able to prize them away for lesser fees if they don't agree on renewals with their current clubs. Simba, the one thing that has been obvious about Barcelona this season is that their defense has struggled. They've never had classically the best defenses, because their game is modeled on attacking play or on dominating possession, but they've always, as a collective unit and statistically, had the best defense in La Liga.
Yes, and I think what you mentioned there in terms of the style of play is what kind of shielded us from actually seeing any potential glaring errors that the back line would probably have, because a lot of it was possession based, and even when they lost the possession, that quick press to actually recover the ball again usually meant that most teams didn't have much of a sniff at the back. This particular season, a lot of teams have started to have a go, and the defense has started to show a bit more frailty. So if this is an area that they can show up, that will help them and hold them in good stead going forward, and hopefully close that very slight gap between them and Real Madrid.
And of course, Barcelona conceded 38 goals in their 38 league outings. So, giving teams the opportunity to score at least once on average in every game they played in La Liga. That's an area they look like they want to rectify.
Rectify it they must, rectify it they are likely to. The one thing that we can rectify is our time management, because we are clean out of time. We've got to come back on Monday. Don't miss the show as we review a great weekend of sport. 6:05 is the time that we come on live, and you can enjoy the show then. Have a great weekend. Otherwise, Zimbabwe, may God richly bless you. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And Andy, out.
And it's Messi! It is the cleanest of clean finishes from the best on the planet.
The biggest sports stories.
Liverpool, the champions of Europe, are top of the world.
The biggest interviews.
That such a great spectacle is ruined by such thuggish behavior.
And all the analysis right here.
He's the one player that has the arrogance to think that he can play in any stadium in the world and any pitch in the world in front of any player in the world and take them on.
Every weekday, it's my sport, it's your sport. It's ZiFM Sport on ZiFM Stereo. My station, your station.